Hello, and welcome to Popcorn News, something to watch while you eat popcorn. Today I am not exactly winging it, but using notes because I just don't have that much time to write out a script and check it and double check it and all that. I just have to go to press. So Kyle Odom is our subject, and he was covered yesterday or 2 days ago in Popcorn News, and I can't keep rewinding the tape for people who just got here, and at this point I will include an advisory which I air from time to time. Much will seem strange here to new arrivals at Popcorn News. I cannot keep rewinding the tape for the benefit of people who just got here. But at my Erge the Moves blog website, you yourself can rewind the tape and view past webcasts. Kyle Odom is the subject, and specifically the focus is on his manifesto, and I'm using an unredacted version of the manifesto, which a commenter to my last video included a link to. So there's the redacted version, which is about 21 pages, and the unredacted version is about 46 pages. In the manifesto, Kyle Odom says they have been here long before we ever existed. And that brings to mind an episode from X-Files where Fox Mulder's deep throat source is talking to Agent Mulder, and Mulder asks him, well, how long have they been here? And the deep throat source says, they, Mr. Mulder, have always been here. They have been here long before we ever existed, writes Kyle Odom in his manifesto. Their technology is millions of years more advanced than ours. In February 2014, Kyle Odom was meditating and had an out-of-body experience. Well, that seems like kookery to some people, but they don't know about military use of remote viewers. They don't know about a book called The Men Who Stare at Goats, also made into a movie. A lot of people out there are just cute bubbleheads that read this stuff and say, well, it's kooky, and they do not consider that there might be something to it. Here, however, are two cute bubbleheads from Lip TV who have automatically dismissed Kyle Odom's manifesto.
Some of the excerpts in it, they signify a paranoid, possibly schizophrenic young man who really thought that Martians were taking over the country, wanting to enslave us, and that this pastor was one of them.
He was a conspiracy theorist. He was targeting religions, church groups, and he threw items over the fence of the White House. We're told he threw a thumb drive over. It'll be very interesting when that comes to light over what material is on that. But this manifesto that they found, talking about aliens living on Mars, talking about aliens living on the moon, talking about amphibian humanoids that are taking over, people turning them into sex slaves. It's really something quite extraordinary. But the fact is, you know, this is a very, very right-wing man. He was an notably an anti-gay marriage protester. He was anti-abortion. So some very, very strange and very extreme views that this man had.
Odom, while having an out-of-body experience, encountered a female being in a blue light. The being was of the nature of unconditional love. Now, here's something else. Philip K. Dick, the science fiction author, also had a transcendental experience which greatly affected him. And to people who automatically dismiss such things, there's such a thing as being closed-minded, my friend. The encounter by Odom with the female spiritual being made him become a threat to the Martians, he says. 2 graduate students began pointing fingers at Odom and saying, "Pew, pew, pew, pew," like they were shooting a gun. These graduate students were Martians, and they were trying to turn Odom into the next school shooter. That brings in the subject of MKULTRA mind control experiments, which is documented to have occurred. Did the government discontinue their mind control experiments? Opinions vary, but we don't know. They may have kept up with these things. Mind control experiments, you can check out a movie called The Manchurian Candidate, the version made in 1962, starring Frank Sinatra. Released, as I recall, it wasn't actually released until after the John F. Kennedy assassination. The Manchurian Candidate dealt with a mind-controlled assassin. This is curious in the time frame of Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused shooter of President Kennedy, who was himself under MKULTRA control. And this goes back to a book called The MKULTRA Secret, which I forget the author, but Lee Harvey Oswald, when he defected to the Soviet Union, bearing them a gift of the U-2 spy plane secrets, he wasn't really defecting. It was a way to give the Soviets disinformation about the U-2 program. But Oswald had to be put under a type of deep hypnosis, MKULTRA, where his mind was in at least 2 compartments, because the Soviets, when Oswald came there, the military knew that the Soviets would be grilling Oswald, giving him truth serum and interrogating him to make sure that he wasn't giving them disinformation. And so MKULTRA compartments were set up in Oswald's mind. So anyway, the movie, The Manchurian Candidate, the movie made in 1962, and not to be confused with a remake, which was inferior to the 1962 version, deals with this MKULTRA mind control. So the two graduate students are following Odom around going pew pew, pew pew, trying to turn him into the next school shooter. Odom sought help from the Veterans Administration because he was an ex-Marine. But nothing improved, Odom writes, and the medication he was given did absolutely nothing. This is significant in that Odom was given medication, and a lot of these crazy shooters that appear, there's a connection with medication that they were on. And after Odom went to VA and was given medication that he says did absolutely nothing, it was after that that he went and shot a pastor in Idaho. In his manifesto, Odom writes that the Martians hide amongst us in plain sight. Can you be absolutely certain, for example, that your wife is not a Martian? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Odom says the Martians can make things appear out of nowhere. I'm sorry for, I had to throw in some humor, okay? This thing about, can you be sure that your wife is not a Martian? Sometimes you gotta stand back, take a laugh. But I do treat this Odom Manifesto seriously. I don't automatically reject it. Odom says the Martians can make things appear out of nowhere. He is pretty sure the Martians can pop in and out of this dimension. He is pretty sure the Martians can overlap our reality with an alternate dimension. And in that, that brings to mind an experiment from 1943 or thereabouts called the Philadelphia experiment. And alleged
its disappearance was a mystery. Its reappearance,
this is now an international problem,
is a global catastrophe.
It's a rip in space-time. You're the only...
In the Philadelphia experiment, it's alleged that Albert Einstein had been developing secretly his unified field theories. And in July of 1943, Dr. Vannevar Bush appointed Albert Einstein to a shadowy committee. Neither the exact nature of this committee nor the skills involved have ever been disclosed. Vannevar Bush was a member of the Majestic 12 Committee. Another member was James Forrestal. Forrestal was suicided in 1949, but in 1941, Forrestal had raced through the corridors of the Pentagon screaming, "We're being invaded and we can't stop them." Albert Einstein, appointed by Vannevar Bush to Majestic 12, he was appointed to a mysterious committee. I have identified Majestic 12 as an outgrowth of the Manhattan Project. That was identified at my Aristomus blog website in the series Our Friend the Ether Part 9. A conflict between Forrestal and the Air Force was probably the foremost cause of his so-called mental breakdown and alleged suicide. In 1943, a rumored Philadelphia experiment is said to have opened a portal into another dimension, which caused the U.S. government to achieve contact with an alien civilization. Now, note that there about the portal to another dimension. in the context of what Odom says the Martians can make things appear out of nowhere. He is pretty sure the Martians can pop in and out of this dimension. He is pretty sure the Martians can overlap our reality with an alternate dimension. Victor Silverman claimed he had been on board the USS Eldridge at the time of the alleged Philadelphia experiment. Before the actual experiment, during the preparation phase, Silverman had noticed a civilian aboard DE-173, the USS Eldridge. "That guy could use a haircut," commented Silverman to a shipmate. Later, Silverman was amazed to discover that the shaggy civilian had been none other than Albert Einstein of the unified field theory. Years before, when Einstein had temporarily abandoned the ether, this had caused complications as to how to explain the electromagnetic field and the force of gravity. Even after majestic Einstein had backtracked and allowed a new ether, still there was a difficulty of unifying the gravity field and the electromagnetic field. In 1925, Einstein was convinced that he had found a final and satisfying solution to the problem. The official version is that Einstein, quotes, abandoned this solution, but years later, quote, returned to it. However, the version told by Philadelphia experiment proponents is that Einstein had in fact solved the problem, but suppressed this due to humanics. He was horrified about the implications of the unified field. Later, circa 1940, because Einstein detested the Nazis, the unified field theory is said to have been quietly revived by him. In abandoning the ether, Albert Einstein became a sort of atheist of the ether. But Einstein's ether atheism lasted only 11 years. Well, anyway, this is just meant to show that the idea that where Odom believes the Martians can pop in and out of this dimension is not without groundwork. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying keep an open mind is all. Thank you for watching Popcorn News.